Hello?
Gerald vanHeerden.
Yes, Mr. Michael. Hello.
If I'm on the line, you're on the air.
That is correct. It is Gerald vanHeerden.
See, I knew you're a theatrical enough guy. So many times when I get on there and I say, you're on the air, and goes, and suddenly they try to get charming. You're ready. I could see you like sitting there with like a cigarette in a holder and a champagne glass, and you're just like ready to go.
Well, Jay, you just hit it on the button. Yes, I am ready to go because I am going off grid the moment I disconnect.
Oh my goodness, you're going into hiding. There you go.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
I am sure it's not about your show that's making you go into hiding. Because I'm hearing wonderful things. You have big crowds, and the show is excellent, and the whole works. Congratulations on this new project, and I know it's only one of many concerning you. Tell our audience about Dangerous to Dance With.
Well, Dangerous to Dance With is quite an interesting, fascinating story. Primarily because it is a combination of going into the world of some very interesting human characters and discovering them at midlife when they have gotten stuck in life, and most importantly, the degree to which we understand how they decide or not to become unstuck. There is a playwright, there's a playwright, there is an acrobat, there is an artist, there is someone who we think is a little bit shady. However, we find some very interesting qualities to him, but he is represented in the initial understanding as a plumber from New Jersey.
Ha!
Yes. So there is lots of interesting, fascinating humanity in terms of understanding all of the complicated nature that we can address and follow through in terms of wanting things and wanting to become more attuned to hope and attuned to, I'm going to sound very, very simplistic here, but I think everyone is looking for a certain sort of love and a certain sort of validation in this play.
It sounds like they're also at a turning point or a crisis in their lives. Dare I say a midlife crisis.
Yes.
And after speaking to the author, I know there's a whole bullfighting or bull jumping, as the case may be, underplot, subplot within this.
There is, and it's fascinating that you bring that up, Jay, because it is very, very symbolic of where all of these people are at this moment. I think we all have, we all want to embrace life, and we want to get the best out of life, and we want to be engaged and have meaningful relationships. And the bull really represents a understanding of having the guts and the bravo to face life and to face that bull and jump over that bull and take what you want from the people that bull represents. And vice versa, it's a satisfaction that you can get from having the chutzpah and the bravo to hold on and don't be stuck in life and go out there and overcome and come to terms with what's going on and finding your path in life.
It's funny, someone with the last name of vanHeerden, I wouldn't imagine to know the Yiddish word chutzpah, but okay.
Well, I'm secretly, I've been informed about quite a bit.
Well, there you go. That's going to bring me to another point in a minute, but it's interesting. I just, after speaking to William Rogers, the playwright, and now speaking to you, it's interesting because you have an artist, an acrobat, and a playwright, and the plumber has a very interesting sideline, which I won't do any spoilers, but he has a very interesting sideline. So it's like you have these four people who have already jumped over the bull in their lives. They have these professions that are precarious enough that they have been jumping over the bull. So it's like they're in this one location, and it sounds like, can they still jump over the bull?
This is entirely correct, and I am remiss. One of the equally important characters is the artist, because she really is she symbolizes for many, and for me in particular, a kind of ability to come through life and to grapple with things that have happened to us, and to find the wherewithal when we need to go out there and jump over that bull and to grab that bull by the horns and not let it defeat us.
Sounds like you've grabbed the bull by the horns with this, because you have a very obviously clear idea of this, because this is the story of all of our lives. How many of us, whether it's just going to work in the morning or trying to create a cure for something, we all look at the bull every day, and when do we no longer have the strength to spring over that bull? So this is a very powerful parable that this show seems to be giving to us.
Yes, I couldn't underline that enough, and I think it is a strong, powerful, quiet story, because I think we can all understand in our lives about dealing with that bull every single day in whatever fashion that is, and we can relate to that, and having the courage and the faith, and I think that also there are sometimes when we just realize that the body sometimes and the will to do that every single time to get over that goal. Sometimes we just realize that our body is only human, and sometimes the wear and tear of doing that every single time is we have to recognize our mortality. So it's also about recognizing, do we want to go out on top, and do we want to tell our story, and do we want to be in control of our story? Or are we going to let outer forces be in charge of telling our story, whatever that is?
Wow. That resonates, like you said, that resonates with everyone. That's not something where someone says, oh, I don't know about that. That's just living life. And that's really fascinating. Now, you made the joke when I mentioned about Yiddish and said you're well informed. You certainly are. You are a theatrical journeyman. Your name is associated in terms of the festival circuit on a very high level. You were artistic director of the legendary Midtown International Theater Festival for many years, and you have been involved in independent theater and off Broadway for quite a while. Tell us about you. Tell us about the great vanHeerden. What's going on with you? Give us the scoop.
Yes. Well, I am always interested in being in the room and being engaged with a playwright, with new work, and with actors working behind it. It is really where I've found my place and my calling. And primarily, I had the very incredible experience, as you say, of being artistic director for plays and solo works at the Midtown International Theater Festival by the producer John Chatterton. And it was just an incredible experience because although I was an artistic director and I had to develop an essence of what a play was and how it would resonate and what the craft was, it allowed me to come into contact with some very, very good playwrights. And that was where I found my calling. I worked on the understanding of what my relationship was with a playwright and how, as a director, I could become and understand the language and the conversations that one has when you are dealing with a new work and birthing it, so to speak. So I say that because this is primarily where I am in my career at this moment. It's really about my relationships with playwrights, access to playwrights, and on top of that, building relationships with artistic directors who have the opportunity to give a green light to new plays that tell the stories that are so fascinating to me for where people are in their lives today. And I think that's the biggest thing that excited me most importantly about being an artistic director. I could shape and bring stories that had a direct parallel to where people were in their lives today with all the multitude of things that are going on, because it really feeds my understanding that we must see stories and we must tell stories that are reflective of people in their lives today and what's going on with them. So that just is really at the foundation of everything that I get excited about and that I commit to and that I find a way to bring these new plays to whatever institution or whatever festival that I can, and then attract the interest so that we can move it forward as the saying goes.
You're certainly in your element because the quality level at the Midtown International Theater Festival was truly unparalleled. So you obviously have a very keen eye as to this. What do you look for when you read a play, when you speak to a playwright, when you're preparing a work? What do you look for? Even when you're directing a piece, simply something as simple as directing. What do you look for? What's on your agenda to pick a piece?
Okay, good question. So the biggest thing is that I am looking for a story that and characters that come to life and that really begin to tell about a certain kind of understanding, a certain kind of faith, a certain kind of hope, and also I'm very open to exploring the darkness that encounters many people in their lives. Political darkness, political anger, political hostility, but essentially I'm looking for redeeming qualities because I believe in the affirmation of life. I believe wholeheartedly. And so I think that is something in the story. There has to be a redeeming quality, and people have to struggle, and they have to start somewhere, and they're on a journey. And so it isn't so much about preaching, but it's about a well-crafted story that has a playwright behind it that really understands the material and the people they're writing about. And I think that's been my greatest joy and my greatest interest is in playwrights who really understand the people, the places, and the ideas that they are writing about. Because that's who I come back to as a director. I have to have a conversation with a playwright about the people and the world they have created, because then I use that language directly with the actors in the rehearsal room so that I can begin to shape and craft an understanding for them so they can make really interesting and informed choices in their work in building a character as the actor.
Sounds like you have to quote Rodgers and Hammerstein, a cockeyed optimism when you talk about hope and you talk about the future and things like that. Let's look on the other side here. Now, what do you find is your biggest obstacle when you're putting a play up as a director or artistic director or a producer? What's the biggest obstacle? And in independent theater, oh my God, we have about an hour and a half.
Yes.
But what's the big one? What's the one that you go, oh no, please don't let this happen?
Right. I think that the biggest obstacle for me is in establishing the producing framework and where is the financing coming for me to be able to put this piece in motion. And as I've matured, because I'm also an independent producer, the environment certainly is very challenging, but there are relationships that I've cultivated, and ultimately I'm looking for financing mechanisms, and there are so many that one needs to be aware of, both self-funding and creating crowdfunding campaigns, as well as in my relationships looking for funding that's going to be supported and come from perhaps the artistic team themselves, either the playwright, or enticing Broadway investors who have a commitment to this particular play. And although it might not initially be ready for a Broadway audience, they understand that new works that are vital need to be given prominence in theaters around the United States, and so I can appeal to them to invest in this particular play, as I've done on several occasions, for a regional audience. This past March, I very much have a relationship with at the Ensemble Theater in Houston, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And I also had a relationship through the Playwright with a Broadway investor. And so she, being a native of Houston, very much wanted to give this the play that I had been directing. She wanted to see it take shape in the Houston area. So I began a journey of bringing it to Eileen, and she found the funding so that we could do so much more in the staged reading that we did at the Ensemble Theater this past March. So once again, I think the biggest obstacle is the funding mechanism, because I believe very firmly that new work needs to have a certain level of people involved, and they need to be compensated for that. So I'm not particularly, I don't feel right about coming to people and asking them in whatever level to be involved with something unless there is some sort of a funding mechanism, however, whatever that is, to be able to engage them through their union affiliation.
So for you, the art is easy. You can find the great works. It's just a matter of finding the people with the checkbooks and the venues behind them to get the work done. Now, you say about paying everyone. That's a really amazing thing. That's a really amazing thing, because how many actors out there have worked on spec? How many actors have worked for exposure and things like that? Do you think it's viable for an actor to work for exposure alone? Do you think do you have like a criteria, if you will? Where would you work for free, or if you would work for free? What's the criteria?
The criteria has a lot to do with the institution or the environment, the people or the places who's asking me. And also it's about, is it going to challenge me? Is this an incredible opportunity to have exposure to a larger institution or a larger audience? So I think that's what it comes down to. If it is for little or transportation, then who is it and what is the exposure? And am I so overwhelmed with what this piece is that I've got to tell this story? So that's the big thing for me.
I knew that was coming. Even though you're saying, in terms of, okay, who's seeing me and all of that, I said, no, this guy, I'm waiting, and there it is. And of course you said, if the art of it is so important that you just had to do it. I knew you're one of those people who would say that. What made you get into this in the first place? I ask this once in a while of certain people, and you're one of the ones I'd want to know. What made you get into the arts?
Well, Jay, I think that is a fascinating question. I have always known from the time that I could formulate my thoughts and my ideas and channel my energies and express them, that the theater had a certain pull to me, because I could use so much of my personality and so much of my interests all came together. But quite frankly, I found that I was so frustrated and underused, and I didn't have a voice when I did other things as a mechanism. I needed the art to tell and to validate my abilities and what it is I wanted to say in life. And I think most importantly, I come from a background of spirituality, of theology, of understanding of the humanities, and I think that was generation-wise, I have many relatives, and I have many, my father and mother and my aunts were all in the pastoral area, and they were ministers of faith, and so I needed to find an expression for that, and that was where the theater has always embraced me. So I think that's why I'm in the theater, because it's always embraced me and given me a safe place to be and become.
That's rather interesting, because I don't have to tell you, the Greeks and the Romans, their theater was also their religion. You would go see Oedipus, and it would include rituals and other such things. So essentially, you're following in your family's footsteps. You are simply a priest of the arts, which is quite wonderful to say, and to live with, for that matter.
Yes.
Gerald, thank you so much. It is a pleasure to speak to you. I know the show is going like gangbusters, and you still have 2 or 3 performances left. I'll make sure our listeners know exactly when the show is going up and how to see Dangerous to Dance With at the Dream Up Festival at Theater for the New City. And I wish you luck with this and the myriad of other projects that are sitting on your desk right now, waiting for that magic vanHeerden touch.
Thank you, Jay. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, and it's been a pleasure to talk with you.
Thank you. Same here. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Ciao.
Talk to you soon.